The promise of the Scriptures. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 15, we read the famous parable of the prodigal son. Jesus tells of the man who took the wealth bestowed on him by his father and squandered it in foreign lands, where he fell into evil ways. At last, repentant, he returned to his father's home. When his father saw him, he was, Jesus tells us, moved with compassion, and ran and fell upon his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee. I am no longer worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, Fetch quickly the best robe and put it on him, and give him a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet. And bring out the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and make merry, because this my son was dead, and has come to life again. He was lost, and is found. And they began to make merry. Small-hearted human beings, identified as they are with their little egos, give exaggerated importance to any slight they receive from others. Thus, they imagine God like them to be petty, unpardoning, and vindictive. In God's eyes, however, when human beings go astray, there is nothing to forgive. All of us are aspects only of His own self. He who made us resides in us. He is not far away from us in some far-off heaven. His call to us always is to return to our home within. The way of return is described in the Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter. Supreme blessedness is that yogis who has completely calmed his mind, controlled his ego-active tendencies, rajas, and purged himself of desire, thereby attaining oneness with Brahma, the infinite spirit. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. This parable is beautiful and real touches the heart, because it touches that special moment that happens to any human being, where sooner or later we find again our true Father. And that joy is great both for the Son and for the Father. I want to share a story about a man who lost himself in the ways in the streets of this world. And even though his light was really far, little by little, he was able to go back to his father. It is the story of Pietro Cavalero. He was an idealist, a person who really lived thanks to his ideals. So he met with his friends in a restaurant in Torino, and they were conspiring against capitalism. They wanted a revolution, a social revolution. And since they needed money, they started to rob banks. And the papers called them the Cavalero band, the Cavalero team, robbers. So they robbed 23 times, 18 of which in a bank. They had guns, they had rifles, and in these acts they killed 5 people. They didn't want to kill anybody, but robbing here and there, they killed 5 people. They had a political ideal, and many people were injured. One of the group said, okay, the first bank we robbed was to have enough money to live, and the others were to support our revolution. Later, they were put in jail. This man was 38 years old. They were very proud of them. And they also created a song where you could find all their ideals. And the words of this song was, "This war is just, and you will see in the wind our flag of the revolution, because we believe in a world of brothers, a world of peace, a world of work." So they had good ideals. When they were put in jail, their enthusiasm was completely lost, became just being desperate. So there was no longer a vision for the future. But God never loses sight of His children. With the love of a father. So every human being who at a certain point wants to change life has the opportunity to do it, because the Father supports this person and sends maybe someone who can inspire this person, or any kind of tools that can be useful. So this man was in jail and started after a few years to read the Gospel. It was a new reading for him, and he found out that Jesus was a real revolutionary. And he did start a revolution, but with no rifle. He had only love. He was very touched by the teaching, love thy neighbor. And little by little he repented. He was also touched by his mother, who continuously visited him in jail. And also the memory of the people who were killed in the robbers. He also wrote a book where he writes, "In the Gospel I found social justice and true freedom. And I understood that everything is based on the idea that man can change and improve, and that defies the greatest obstacle to redemption. That is, that you are completely stuck to your role of bad guy." Then he writes, I was always very touched by the forgiveness of my relatives. So you act bad and people forgive you. And that really changed me. So after years in jail, he was freed because he was completely repented and changed. So in 1988, he was free, and he was completely transformed. We don't know what can happen in the heart, in the consciousness of a person. It's impossible, because that is the privileged place where a man, a woman can find God. Grace comes and changes people who are open to it. And these transformations are real miracles, but they do happen. There is a critical and glorious moment of transformation that comes for every human being. When you're ready, the Father knows how to come to you. Hare Krishna always have a little tail, ponytail, because they say that God, when it's the right moment, will be ready to catch them. So when the right moment comes, what do we do? So maybe we misbehaved and we are far from true freedom, from true justice. Maybe we are far from freedom, from truth. At that point, you understand that you spoiled all your gifts. For example, this man I was telling you about was an incredible leader. He was very brave. He was a good man, deep in his soul, and was able to influence others. But he behaved in the wrong way. So at that point, he decided to use the gifts received by God to help all suffering people. So he dedicated the rest of his life to serve, to help poor people. So he became a missionary. He started a mission for young people So he started helping poor people in old Torino. There was a big warehouse of army full of rifles and guns, and they transformed it, and it became the warehouse of peace. And it was a place where I could give a place for people to sleep in, for poor people, and where to have a warm meal. So he understood that through helping others, avoiding to judge others or to condemn others, and just offering a hand, even though maybe the people you're helping are not looking at you with a smile. He understood that that was the way to live the revolutionary teachings of the Christ. After 10 years of service, he left the body because of a cancer. He left beautiful paintings and a book called I Love You, and it's a gathering of letters he wrote to his friend Oliver, and they witness about his transformation and how the love of God is strongest than anything else. And it also witness how the ways of God sometimes are mysterious. We read in his book these words: I desire that all the money coming in from this book are given to the foundation I created for poor people. I'm happy that my difficult life ended in peace. writing to his friend, he said, to his friend Oliver, he said, I love you. So he was ready to leave the body. And this friend Oliver witnessed that he became a very wise man. So this is a story of just one man, but we have millions of these stories. You can imagine how the father welcomed Peter and started to make merry with him. I lost this son, but now this son is found. I remember my first days in Ananda when I had this precious meeting with God. I was always crying, but out of joy. It was so special, so big. I realized that all little joys and satisfactions you can have in life are nothing if compared to the simple, great joy you have at God's presence. And also sufferings and worries are nothing. They really fade away completely at the presence of the simple joy of God. It's a joy that supports you and offers you a different, wonderful perspective for the future. Of course, the practice of meditation can help us to go deeper and deeper. All the masters did their practices. There is a beautiful song that says, after my meeting with God, my laughter. So I laugh for everything. I laugh for the little waves of the water in the rivers. I laugh. So love made my heart full of joy. Isn't it beautiful? So special, and it's the most beautiful thing that can happen in our lives. There is a beautiful chant by Swami Kriyananda. We're going to listen to it in short, which is, life is a magician, and the words say, I don't know anything else but love. And love is like rays of light on the snow after a long winter. Oh, my heart is burning. Every desire. Too long I wandered, wasting my life, thinking you were indifferent. But now I know that your smile was always with me. I listened and your love was there. Now I know your smile was always mine. I cannot breathe for love. All the stars told me, come home, all the ways of life, and just nothing, only love can heal. How crazy I was to get far from you, and this is my wish for you all.